I had been waiting all day for this moment. Work had been brutal, emails piling up, endless meetings, and the constant pressure to keep everything under control. But now, the clock finally struck 6, and I rushed out of the office with my heart racing, thinking about nothing but seeing him. My boyfriend, Mark. We had been together for a few months, and I couldn't deny how much I liked him. Or maybe, I thought I did. I had built this perfect picture of us in my head. Cozy dinners, late-night talks, laughter echoing through quiet apartments. Everything seemed perfect. Or so I thought. The evening air was cool as I walked down the office building steps, my bag bouncing against my hip. I looked around, expecting to see him leaning casually against the security desk, waiting for me with that half-smile that made my stomach flip. But he wasn't there. Instead, there was someone else. A new face at the security booth. I hadn't noticed him before. He was tall, with dark hair that fell just slightly into his eyes, giving him this kind of effortless charm that made people stare without meaning to. His uniform looked crisp, and there was something almost magnetic about the way he leaned on the desk, casually checking the monitors. I frowned, trying to push the thought away. I was here for Mark. I had to be. And yet, I couldn't help stealing glances. Something about the way he moved, the calm way he handled the little chaos of people leaving the office, drew me in. As I waited, my phone buzzed in my hand. A message from Mark, running late. Be there soon. Sorry. I rolled my eyes, annoyed, but smiled anyway. He always ran late. But now, standing there, watching the security guard, I realized that sometimes, people show up when you least expect it, not the ones you're waiting for, but the ones who actually notice you. I shook my head, trying to focus, but the smile I didn't mean to wear lingered. Minutes passed, and I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, glancing at my phone again. Mark still wasn't here. Annoyance bubbled up, but it was drowned out by a strange curiosity. The security guard, his name, I later learned, was Ryan, kept glancing my way too, not in a nosy way, but with a gentle awareness that made me feel seen. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, that it was just my nerves playing tricks. But then he smiled. A small, almost shy smile, the kind that didn't demand anything but gave you this tiny spark of warmth you didn't know you needed. My heart, which had been set on waiting for Mark, did a little flip. I cursed under my breath. What was happening? Long day, he asked suddenly, his voice low but friendly. I jumped slightly, not expecting him to talk to me. Yes, I admitted, trying to sound casual, though my voice probably betrayed the nervous flutter in my chest. You? Same. Lots of people leaving at once. Keeps me busy. He chuckled softly, and it was effortless, like laughter that didn't have to try. We started talking. Simple things at first, about the office, the weather, the strange way elevators always seemed to break at the worst possible time. But as we talked, I felt this unusual ease, like I could speak freely without filters, without pretending. With Mark, conversations had their boundaries, their rehearsed comfort. With Ryan, it felt real. And then he laughed. Really laughed. Not the polite laugh people give when they feel they should, but a full, deep laugh that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. I laughed too, and for the first time that day, I forgot I was waiting for someone else. I glanced at my phone again. Mark's text had changed. Stuck in traffic. Sorry again. Won't be too long. My thumb hovered over the screen, but I didn't reply immediately. I was too caught up in the conversation, in the way Ryan's presence filled the awkward gaps of waiting with something unexpectedly comforting. I didn't want to admit it, but as I laughed at something he said, a tiny voice inside me whispered, maybe he's the one who was meant to notice you all along. I didn't notice the time passing until the faint sound of footsteps echoed from the street. My phone buzzed again. Mark finally, almost there. Don't leave yet. I tucked it back into my bag, but I couldn't help feeling a little conflicted. The conversation with Ryan had shifted something inside me, something I hadn't expected. And then I saw him, Mark, striding up with his usual confident grin, clearly flustered from traffic. My heart sank a little as I realized I was standing there, laughing, looking at Ryan, while Mark approached. "Hey!" Mark called, brushing his hands on his jacket, trying to shake off the day. "Sorry I'm late." His eyes caught mine, and I forced a smile, one that felt heavier than it should. "Hi," I replied, trying to sound normal. Mark noticed Ryan for the first time. "Oh. You must be the new security guard," he said with a forced friendliness that didn't quite reach his eyes. Ryan smiled politely but didn't overextend himself, and I couldn't help but notice the subtle tension that suddenly filled the air. We started walking out together, Mark talking about his day, but my mind kept drifting back to Ryan. There was something about his calm, patient way of listening, the way he noticed little things, my tired eyes, the slight slump in my shoulders, that Mark never seemed to notice. The walk to the parking lot felt unusually long. Mark kept chatting about traffic, dinner plans, trivial things that felt weightless in the wake of the emotions I was trying to suppress. My laughter, my openness, even my heart, all belonged to the brief moments with Ryan. And then it happened. A brief glance back, and our eyes met again, mine and Ryan's, and for a split second, it was like the world had paused. The warmth, the connection, the subtle spark. It hit me all at once. I realized then, with a mix of guilt and exhilaration, that something inside me had shifted irrevocably. Waiting for someone, I had found someone else entirely, and I didn't know if I could ever go back. Mark continued talking, oblivious, but I couldn't stop thinking, maybe waiting wasn't about him at all. Maybe it was about finally noticing who was really there for me. The car ride with Mark was quiet, though he filled the silence with his usual chatter. Stories about traffic jams, coworkers, trivial complaints about meetings. I nodded, smiled, even laughed when he tried to make a joke, but my mind wasn't on him. It was on Ryan. Every little thing I remembered, the way he had listened, the easy way he had made me laugh, the small, genuine attention in his eyes, played on repeat. It was confusing and exhilarating all at once. I didn't know how to feel, except that a part of me had awakened in a way I hadn't expected. When we arrived at my apartment, Mark parked and turned to me, all charm and easy confidence. "So, what do you want to do? Dinner? Movie?" he asked, clearly hoping for a light evening to erase the frustration of traffic. I hesitated. I wanted to say yes, but something inside me resisted. My phone buzzed in my pocket, an alert from the office security system. Ryan had just sent a quick message, "Did you get home okay? Hope your day wasn't too stressful." My heart skipped. Mark noticed the change in my expression. "Everything okay?" he asked, slightly concerned. I forced a smile and nodded, but it felt hollow. Later, as Mark got comfortable, I sat on the couch, my mind replaying the evening. I felt guilty for enjoying Ryan's attention, guilty for comparing it to Mark's, guilty for feeling something I wasn't supposed to feel. And yet, the pull was undeniable. I realized it wasn't just a fleeting attraction. With Ryan, I felt alive in a way I hadn't with Mark. The ease, the warmth, the laughter, it had all happened in what felt like minutes, yet it left a lasting impression. By the time I said goodnight to Mark, I felt a strange mixture of confusion, excitement, and fear. I knew something had changed, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Waiting for someone, I had found someone else entirely, and my heart was already betraying the plans I had made. And somewhere, deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about Ryan. Every little detail, the way he had smiled, the gentle tilt of his head, the calm in his voice, kept replaying in my mind. Mark was on my mind too, but differently now. He was familiar, predictable. Ryan was exciting, magnetic, and entirely unexpected. When I returned to the office that afternoon, I caught sight of him at the security booth before anyone else. My heart skipped. He looked up and waved, that same easy smile lighting up his face. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a simple, human acknowledgement, but it felt like the center of my day. "Hey," I said softly as I walked past the desk. "Hey," he replied, his tone casual, but there was a warmth there that made my chest tighten. "How was last night?" "Fine, busy," I murmured, feeling my words stumble. He chuckled, just the way he did yesterday, and it made me laugh too. For the next hour, I found myself lingering near the lobby, making excuses to pass by. Every glance exchanged, every shared smile, sent little shocks of awareness through me. It was impossible to ignore. Something between us was growing, delicate and electrifying, like a secret pulse that neither of us wanted to name just yet. I caught myself imagining what it would be like if it wasn't just these fleeting moments. A laugh shared in the hallway, a brush of hands when handing over an ID card, even these small, everyday interactions seemed to carry weight I couldn't deny. By the time the workday ended, I realized I was waiting again, but this time, not for Mark. I found myself hoping Ryan would be there when I left. And he was. He looked up as I approached the exit, a subtle smile tugging at his lips. "See you tomorrow?" he asked, casual, but there was a spark in his eyes that betrayed him. I nodded, my own smile mirroring his. "Yeah. Tomorrow." As I walked to my car, I couldn't help but wonder, how had this happened so quickly? I had been waiting for someone I thought I wanted, and now my heart was quietly racing for someone I barely knew, but somehow, I already felt like I couldn't let go. The next few days were a blur of emotions I couldn't name. I went through the motions with Mark, texting, small talk, shared meals, but each time I felt a gnawing emptiness I couldn't explain. My thoughts kept drifting to Ryan. His laugh, the way he noticed small details, the warmth in his eyes that seemed to understand me in ways Mark never did. I felt guilty. Guilty for enjoying Ryan's attention, guilty for comparing him to Mark, guilty for feeling my heart pull in a direction I wasn't supposed to. But the more I tried to ignore it, the louder the feelings grew, until they became impossible to deny. One afternoon, I found myself lingering by the security desk again. Ryan was there, reviewing footage with calm precision, but he looked up when I approached, and for a moment, the world narrowed down to just the two of us. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice trembled slightly. "Hey," he replied, his smile soft, easy, and utterly disarming. "Long day?" "Yes," I said. "But, seeing you helps." I wanted to take it back immediately. I didn't want him to know, not yet. But the words had escaped, and I couldn't undo them. He tilted his head, studying me carefully. "Really?" he asked, voice low, genuine. "That's nice to hear." I nodded, feeling a blush rise to my cheeks. I wanted to explain, to say it was just a passing comment, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. It wasn't passing. It was real, and it scared me. For the first time, I realized that the person I had been waiting for all this time, the person I thought I loved, might not be Mark at all. My heart had quietly shifted, guided by small gestures, laughter, and the subtle kindness Ryan showed me. I left the office that day with a whirlwind of emotions, a mix of fear, excitement, and undeniable longing. I knew things were about to change, and I couldn't go back to pretending that everything was fine with Mark. Something had awakened in me, and it was too powerful to ignore. A few days later, I found myself standing by the office lobby once more, my heart hammering as I waited, not for Mark, not for the familiar, but for the unexpected warmth that had stolen my thoughts, Ryan. When he appeared at his desk, our eyes met immediately, and I realized something had shifted. It wasn't just a spark anymore, it was a pull, a force I couldn't fight. The hesitation, the guilt, even the fear, all of it faded under the weight of what felt undeniably right. "Hey," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Hey," he replied, smiling, calm and welcoming, as if he had known this moment would come. We talked, but the conversation wasn't about work or trivialities. It was about us, about the unspoken connection that had been building since the first day I saw him. My chest tightened with every word, every laugh, every glance. I felt alive in a way I hadn't with Mark, and the realization was as terrifying as it was liberating. When Mark texted me later, asking to meet for dinner, I didn't respond immediately. I sat there, phone in hand, and thought about Ryan, the way he noticed me, the way he made me feel like I mattered, the effortless comfort that Mark could never give. I realized that waiting for someone else had been a detour. The heart wants what it wants, and mine had already chosen. I replied to Ryan instead, asking if he wanted to grab a coffee after his shift. When he agreed, his smile lit up the room in a way that made my heart skip again. I knew what I was doing, maybe unconventional, maybe unexpected, but it felt right. More right than anything else had in a long time. As I walked out of the office that evening, Mark's voice echoed in my mind, but it no longer held sway over my heart. Ryan was there, waiting. Not just at the security desk, but in the quiet spaces of my thoughts, the soft corners of my life that had been longing for something real. Sometimes, life doesn't go as planned. Sometimes, the person you're meant to be with isn't who you expect. And sometimes, falling for someone else, unexpected, fleeting, and entirely real, is the best kind of love you could ever find. I had been waiting, but I had finally seen. And this time I didn't look back.